Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast. And now your host, Micah Chrisman.
Hello, welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast, where we explore art, community, spirituality, and our cosmic significance / insignificance. I'm here today with a special Kansas City guest, again from Asheville to Kansas City. We have Isaac Collins here, and he is a community entrepreneur, business coach, and most importantly, a husband and father of two. He started his entrepreneurial journey fresh out of college at 23 years old. Fast forward 12 years, and Isaac's had the honor of owning 7 for-profit businesses and 1 nonprofit in various industries, from brick-and-mortar food, real estate investing, construction, health supplements, yoga therapy and training, to professional services. Currently, Isaac owns 3 Yogurtini Frozen Yogurt stores and Streamlined Profit Academy, a business coaching company. Isaac, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, you're a busy dude. We were just talking about how it's with the time difference, and you trying to honor your family time, and you trying to focus on business and family and everything going on. That was like, we're squeezing this in the early hours for you at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. my time, before I have to go to work. I'm sorry, before you have to go to work. So
yeah, very excited to be here with you. And yeah, I was telling you before, this is I'm excited to do this, and so I wanted to make the time. And we've been trying to get on the air for a while together. And 6 a.m. to actually be able to be on camera and talk is way different than just being up and doing some chores at 6 a.m. and getting the kids ready. So I'm excited to be here with you. If I'm a little foggy, I promise I'll get around to the point if I'm talking on something.
This might be a new strategy I take, kind of like the show Hot Ones, where like the whole thing is like, we're going to have you eat hot wings, and then I'm going to ask you really pressure point questions. Maybe I should just start making my guests like sleep deprived and just like, all right, we do 4 a.m. interviews. Do you have to? No, I'm just kidding.
Yep. Or the other way, like go to the bar and let me know when you're back, and then we'll start the interview.
Right. Oh, I've had a few friends like, well, there's been some shows like that. Yeah, that'll be the Patreon version. We'll start, those will be the ones I save those for.
It's gonna be really interesting.
Well, Isaac, for background for folks, we kind of did a little bit of a partnership when I worked at Be Great Together. We were doing like funding for under-resourced schools, and Yogurtini was a partner and a couple different initiatives that we did with doing books and like purchasing books. They did a little sponsorship stuff, and it was a great kind of mini campaign, probably over a year ago now. Not sure when that was. And anyways, I interviewed you for an article we wrote for Be Great Together, and I was like, hey, this guy's super cool, and I just liked kind of your faith journey, your life journey, and just kind of what you've been about. And so I was like, I really want to get him on the show. So I don't know if you, Isaac, could start off, but just share with folks like kind of your come of power story. You're kind of starting from early life to now.
Yeah. Well, sounds like your listeners are kind of all over. I am from Kansas City, born, I like to say, somewhat raised. So I was born on the east side of Kansas City, which means in Kansas City, it's a very segregated city. You have a good amount of diversity, but it's, especially back then, if you look like this, you're over on this side. If you look like this, you're over on this side. People in the Kansas City or in this area know that truce, you'll hear that word if you talk about Kansas City and segregation, is the dividing line, where a lot of the black people were living east, white were living west. We were on the east side, Independence and Paseo. And so we did that. My family is into a lot of stuff. I always say a lot of illegal entrepreneurial endeavors. And so my grandma gave my parents the idea that overnight we need to leave. Like the only way for us to get better and clean and all the stuff is to leave the environment that we're in. So overnight, my parents were in a recovery center an hour north of Kansas City. We moved our family, my grandma and my 2 uncles, and started fresh in St. Joe. And now that wouldn't be as big of a deal because there's smartphones and social media. But, you know, in 1990, 1989, that was a big deal, because if you move like that, you can't really find people like that. So as easy. So it was really nice. It was a nice fresh start for it. So I grew up there in a very different environment, and honestly, it was the best thing for me. I got a chance to kind of be around a diverse grouping of individuals, but it wasn't the life that we were living before in Kansas City. And yeah, we stayed in St. Joe all the way until I was 22. Went to elementary school all the way through college there, and my parents were solely focused on putting me around individuals who could pour into me. So church, sports teams. I did Boy Scouts, didn't stay in it because it wasn't my jam, but really I was big into school, mainly math, sports, and then church. Those are my three jams that really helped make me who I was. And then the combination of my family being around me. Like, I was the definition of being raised by a village because of my parents, because of my grandma, because of my two uncles and their wives. So it was a cool upbringing of love. We didn't have much as far as money and possessions go, but we had an abundance of love. And that was the most amazing thing to have growing up, because as a kid, you don't know you're poor. Yeah. And we didn't know that. We just knew that when we needed a hug or we needed to talk to somebody, they were there. And that meant so much. So that was really great. Ended up going to college at Missouri Western State University, which is in St. Joe. I got a business degree. I wanted to own my own business one day. I played football in college. Like I said, sports were my life: football, basketball, track, soccer. I ended up going on with football, and it was a lot of fun. And actually, while I was at Missouri Western, they created this entrepreneurial program that was helping graduating seniors to actually get into business right out of college. It was super dope. I entered the contest, ended up winning my year. So actually, right after I got out of college, I was funded by the program and our benefactor to open my own business. And so at 23 years old, I became my own boss. And it was an amazing experience. We can dive more into that journey later if you want to. But yeah, 12 years later, I've owned 7 businesses, for profit, 1 nonprofit, been able to hire over 450 employees. That's been truly amazing. After that,
a lot of people.
It is. And
holy cow.
You start to understand people's differences, but also the ways that they're the same. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about leadership and impact and pouring into people. Because we think the thing that's going to motivate and inspire people is more money, and rarely is it that. There's so many more things that are important to humans before you say, hey, here's a raise, and then them like, yay, this is great, I want to stay here. Like, you really have to pour into acknowledgement and recognition, tapping on their passions and their purposes, really aligning them with the work that they like to do, making sure they're heard, making sure they're loved. So those are a lot of really, really cool things. And that helped because I didn't have a lot of that growing up. I had my family that showed me that I mattered and I loved, but then when they sent me out to the world, it got really tough for me. So that's really a part of my story of belonging and being seen and being loved. And I took that skill and put it into business, and it really worked for me.
Yeah. And just curious, like, you know, sounds like that change of environment helped you and your family. What was it like, you know, like you said, when you started kind of doing that springboard, that launch from that, winning that scholarship and move, you know, we don't have to get into all the family juiciness, but, you know, just like you're saying, like, how are they doing? Like, how's that connection? And, you know, sounds like they've been supportive of you throughout your whole life, and just curious, like, what that has, what elevation or difference has that been now that you're got a jam-packed schedule, working, doing the, you know, is it like you guys still do Sunday lunches, and, or, you know, I'm just curious how they're doing.
Yeah. So when you were working with Be Great together, you know, this, working for a nonprofit that does stuff with kids. And I had a nonprofit called Superhero Yoga, where we did yoga and meditation and breath work in schools to kids to teach them other ways to critically think and be able to self-regulate when something goes on in their day and they get triggered. How do you handle it? Do you shut down and don't talk to your teachers and your friends? Do you fight portion of it? Do you punch them because they made you mad? Both are unacceptable. Or can you self-regulate and calm yourself in that moment to be able to continue to compose yourself and act? And so I say, you know, that piece to say that was one thing that my parents said is early on, they're going to give us an abundance of love and teach us those skills, how to communicate, because it was something that they didn't have in their life. And that was a truly amazing thing that I got to experience at a young age. Like, what I saw with our kids was, if you give them the skills and the tools to self-regulate, be calm, all that kind of stuff, but you also show them the possibilities, they can do a lot more. Because if you can't see it, you can't even envision it, you know? So showing them what they can do, like more than the stereotypical for the Black community, you know, playing basketball or football professionally or rapping. That's a lot of what we heard of. So we started introducing them to a lot of other things that they can do. And it started to open their mind to what the possibilities were. And I love that, because a lot of the kids are so bright and so brilliant, but they just went to the lowest, you know, common denominator based off what they knew. That was amazing. So I bring that to my parents. One thing they did is they always said, the sky's the limit. You can do everything that you work for. It is, you know, this world is yours. You can do all of these things. So they were so impactful on my journey and gave me these huge ambitions for this amazing life. So even if I missed the mark, I was still up here trying really, really hard. And so, yeah, my parents are heavily invested in me and my success, and they still are. You know, my mom's 61, my dad's 76. My dad retired a few years ago. They're living in St. Joe. And so last year we actually moved them down to Kansas City, and they live less than a mile from us. So they're really so heavily invested. They see my kids multiple times every single week. And I love that, because not only do I still get the benefits of it, someone who's going into new terrain of being married for 6 years and now having 2 kids, 3 years old and 1 year old, they're still coaching me and mentoring us and all that kind of stuff. And now my kids get that benefit as well. So who would I be not to give that same respect to the people I'm over, my employees, and, you know, if I'm leading a small group, the people who are in my group and that kind of stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, my folks are devastated that I've moved away, and I'm like, hey, I gave you guys 34 years in Kansas City. You know, so, like, you got, you know, I was like, I'm a late bloomer, so I'm like, I got to spread my wings and fly now at 34 years old. But, you know, I'm always like, don't worry, I'll come back, and I'll surely, you know, they'll put my body to rest in Kansas City. That's gonna have to go.
And I think that's okay. I mean, nothing says that you're going to stay gone forever. I mean, I was gone for 3 to 4 years, and I was like, I'm going to go live other places, and took Kansas City for granted, if you will. And I lived other places and realized I love Kansas City. I used to say it's the greatest city. It is not. Sorry, Kansas Cityans. However, when you love your city and your family and friends are there, it does make it the best city. So for me, it is the best city because of the people who were in it, not the entertainment and things that we get to do in the city. Because, man, it's hard to beat some of the cities in northern Arizona where you can drive and you can be in the desert, or you can go to a mountain. You have so much stuff. Denver, there's so many things you can do. It's hard to beat those places.
I was gonna say, you're like a Southwest fan, huh? You like
I have family down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know a lot about
everyone, I feel like, if they moved out of Kansas City, they went to, you know, Colorado, Texas, Chicago, and I was like, I had visited Asheville a year and a half ago or so, and it was like an intentional trip to, like, I had a friend who lives over in Myrtle Beach and about 5 hours from here. He's like, hey, you should check out Asheville. It's a creative music scene in the mountains. You know, your people are there, basically. I was like, wait, what do you mean your people? You know, just like,
what do you mean you people?
you hippie types, you know, kind of thing was, he was, you know. Anyways, I loved the place, and so I kind of just was like, hey, I'm gonna kind of direct my next steps in life to try to figure out how to just transition and live here. And like I said, I don't know if it'll be for a few years, whatever, but it was just like, you know, like you said, I feel like there's times where it's like, oh, I just kind of want to break the mold of, like, there was just a vibe of, like, I love Midwest culture, but I understand that culture. I was like, I don't know East Coast culture, and I wanted to kind of, I don't know, I was like, I think that would be a cool experience to have. But Kansas City's always going to be home, and there's things I miss about it, and other things I don't, like the weather. Weather's much nicer here. So, like, at least in the wintertime, you know.
Amazing. I went there for a bachelor party in 2022, and kept hearing it was amazing. And I was like, how amazing really can it be? And after leaving, I mean, it's beautiful. We went hiking. I mean, the bar scene's great. The breweries are amazing. The art's great. The music. Yeah. Love Asheville. Good choice.
It is funny though, because, like, you know, I like I like to have my drinks, my beverages, but I'm not a huge beer fan anymore. Like I will have a beer if offered or friends want to go out. But I'm like, oh, that's the whole culture here. Everyone goes for like a really rigorous hike or mountain biking, and then they're like, all right, we get to go reward ourselves. We're gonna go have a beer or two in the parking lot. And I'm just like, well, I just need to get to the part where I like the mountain biking part first. I could probably miss out on the beer part afterwards. I don't know. But I realized, oh, there's like 100-something breweries here. It's crazy. It's like beer capital of the East Coast. It's cool. Also, I'm like, now I have to like, switch that hat on, or that become that guy again. And people always give me friends, like, you look like an IPA kind of guy. And it's like, again, what are you trying to say?
What does that mean? What does that say about me?
you look like you could be a youth pastor. I've had people say that to me before. And it's like,
I can see that being a college. I can see that one. I don't know about the IPA. I can see the youth pastor for sure.
He specifically was like, I could just see you like having like the lock-ins, ordering the pizza. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate you, but also fuck you. Also, I get what you're trying to say. I'm big nurturing burly man guy vibes, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm an IPA pastor, apparently.
There you go. Embrace it.
So Isaac, just kind of jump back into like, your entrepreneurial journey and talking about like you got the scholarship, you did that, launch that business, but like what spawned like the inception of Yogurtini? What was like, hey, I'm gonna like go down into this frozen yogurt world and I'm gonna start this franchise from the ground up. Yeah.
So it's interesting, when I was in that entrepreneurial program at my university, the partnership was with Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. So if you went through the experiment, the class and everything, and you won, Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory was the store that you were awarded with. So I owned that for 4 years. When I moved away, I lived in Iowa, outside of Iowa City, in a small town called Williamsburg. It's a town of 3,000. So going from Kansas City of 2.2 million plus to Williamsburg, a town of 3,000, was quite the culture shock. That's honestly the reason why I left. But it was interesting. So I had that experience, but after those years in Iowa, I really wanted to go back home. I liked the business of Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, and I wanted to do that in Kansas City. So I looked for opportunities. I looked to see if there was any other Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory opportunities there. And there wasn't that were being sold, because there are a few here in the metro. But actually, Yogurtini is a franchise. And it's a franchise that was at the time owned by Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. So I contacted them and said, hey, do you have any opportunities in Kansas City? And they said, nothing for chocolate, but we do have this frozen yogurt concept that one of the locations is for sale. Are you interested? I said, yes, anything to get back to Kansas City. Miss my family and my friends, and I miss home. So I looked into it, ended up doing it. And that was in 2015. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I am someone who loves to spark joy. I love to connect people, build community, support local, all these kinds of stuff, just overall do good. And Yogurtini, a self-serve frozen yogurt store, is an interesting thing because it almost resembles the night version of coffee. So coffee is a lot of people's second home. Oh, my local coffee shop. You lived in Kansas City. Kansas Cityans are obsessed with coffee. Like Asheville may have beer, Kansas City has barbecue and coffee.
They don't do coffee good here. I'm sorry, Asheville.
My
friends, friends of mine. I was like, is it me or is it like coffee's kind of just shit here? And they're like, yeah, no. I was like, God, that's one of those things I miss. Kansas City, we have our roasteries and they're fire.
You also don't know until you know. Like when I was in Iowa, before that, I never really drank coffee like that and didn't eat barbecue a ton. When I was in Iowa, there was a couple barbecue places we go to and some coffee shops. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Local. Yeah. Went back to Kansas City, had all the barbecue, had all the coffee. And then I'd go visit friends in Iowa and they'd be like, oh, let's go to this new barbecue place. Trash. Let's go to this coffee shop we used to go back in the day. Trash. I'm like, so anyways, it kind of changes as well in that regard. But the Yogurtini piece, it was just amazing business because just like coffee, it's focused on building community. Like we're a first date spot. It's anniversary. It's special events. It's holiday. People come in for that time, and rarely are they coming in by themselves. It's usually with a friend, a significant other, a church group, whatever it is. And so I love it because it taps on who I am as a human, wanting to connect with people. And it's just a fun business. Like, you don't really come into our stores mad. And if you do, you traditionally leave happy. And if you come happy, you leave happier. So it's a fun business in that regard.
Yeah, no one's coming in there being like, give me my Yogurtini. I've had a really shit day and I'll punch somebody if they don't give it to me. It's like,
yeah. Or if they do come in like that, they know they're coming in to get a sweet treat to make them feel better.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, there was a Chick-fil-A actually that closed a few miles from my plaza location because there were so many fights that were going on inside of there that they just said, we're out. And they closed the Chick-fil-A that was doing extremely well because of the amount of fights that were happening. Like, that's
really
Yogurtini.
Yeah, that's no bueno. Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, yeah, I mean, like you said, when you work in the people business, it comes with people problems, drama, and managing. And then you said 400 plus employees. So, like, there's both the inspiration side of the business, and then there's like people management. And so curious, like, how do you know, are there ever times you know, do you find yourself more blessed of being able to focus more on the personal development of your staff, or do you have to like find yourself putting out fires, having to deal with like switching gears? Like, all right, I got to go fire some people. I don't know. You know,
it's hand in hand. It's hand in hand constantly. The potential for us to fire someone is always there. But I always like to say these people are choosing their fate, whether they're high level managers that I talk to every day, or they're 14 to 16-year-old team members that I rarely talk to unless I'm in store. I always want to know their name. I want to profile on them. I want to look them up. I want to reach out to them initially and talk to them, say, hey, kind of open that door of communication if they do need me. But people choose their fate. We train well, we pay well, we treat them well. We focus on community inside of our four walls, just like we do focus on community in Kansas City Metro. And then it's up to you. If you do the things that gets you fired, we fire quickly. Because we don't want to mess up our culture. We don't want to mess up the community aspect that we built. We don't want someone there who doesn't want to do the things that we're asking them to do. And if you can't do it, it's pretty evident. We want self-starters. So if you aren't a self-starter and we have to constantly tell you what to do, it's not the job for you. But on the other side, we do love to develop our people, because our thing is leave them better than we found them. And I had a friend actually ask me this on the phone the other day, because we're going through some people issues right now, which is constant. He was saying, when you're working on your people and you're dealing with your people, like, what's your focus? Kind of the same question you just asked me when it comes to that. And I said, the benefit and the reward of pouring so much into an employee in the industry I'm in doesn't show its head until several years after. Because the employees in the moment, especially if they're younger, they don't know that this is a good work environment to be in.
Sure.
They don't know that they're being treated with respect and we're asking their opinion on things. And that's rare nowadays, especially in the food and beverage industry and hospitality. They don't know that. So when they go out into the world and they quit with us, or they get fired, which is more of a quit thing, and they work several other jobs, that's when they're back in Kansas City and they're off to college or whatever, they come back and see me and say, I didn't know how great this job was. I didn't know how much you respected us. I didn't know what you were trying to build here. And then they get it. That fills me up. That's what matters. Leaving them better, teaching them how to work. Because I had a bullish boss when I first started working at Best Buy. His name's Jeff. Everyone hated him because he was
Jeff. All right, I just don't like Jeff already. I can just by his name.
Jeff was actually a really good guy, because everyone didn't like him because he was so mean and all this kind of stuff. But Jeff was by the book. He was by the rules. Do this. And I came in 16 years old, years of my parents teaching me how to work, but also years in sports. So I'm like, you're the boss. I listen to you. You tell me what to do. I do it. I execute the play. And so I did, and he loved me. And Jeff and I still are close, actually. We talk from time to time.
Oh, well, sorry, Jeff. I jumped on the gun.
Yeah.
You're like, don't talk about Jeff that way. Don't talk about Jeff. He's my homie.
But Jeff
That's
taught me
cool.
how to work. Follow the system and you'll get to success. And that helps me with playing ball in college. Follow the new system and you'll get there, which helped me being a franchise owner. Follow the franchise system and you will get there. So now I do that for other people. And my goal is to make them good employees, which in turn helps them with whatever they do next. Because if I don't have rules and they don't know that this is important, where do they end up at that point?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a burden on the next person. Maybe that bleeds into the relationship. And maybe I'm thinking too far into it, but I also think that's why we have a good culture and people stay with us, is because we care.
Yeah, I was curious. Just it sounded like there was, you've at least had a couple people who've come back to kind of just thank you for the, the ethics and the character building just process of your approach to things. Is there any I don't know, anecdotal stories you can share about where you saw somebody who was really struggling to maybe they didn't understand good work ethic and you kind of got to see that turn around, and by investing in them and having that culture shift with that person and it paid off? Or is it most of the time it does take a few years and it's a return on investment that you don't always see right offhand?
All the above. I would say you have your good employees, and if you put them in a good system, they become great. You have the ones who are good and they've never been tested, but they've also been around a lot of people who are kind of slacking and aren't focused on it. And once you remove them from those individuals who are keeping them distracted, they start to rise. We had that recently with two people that we still have actually were extremely good employees, but they were around a group of individuals we had at the time that were just work wasn't what they were focused on. And once we removed those people, they instantly got a lot better. Then you have the ones, this is where most people are, I would say. They're bad or they're below good. They're below average. And a lot of times it's because they don't know how to work. They don't understand what is expected of them in the work environment. Because we get a lot of people who have worked a lot of food jobs. I come from McDonald's. I come from even a Chick-fil-A. I come from Burger King. I come from places like that. They are not pouring into you. They are not pouring into you. They are not focusing on you as the individual. They're not saying, how's your day going today? They're not saying your performance is lacking right now. Is it something professionally that we can help, or is there something personal? If it's personal, if you want to talk about it, we're here. But if not, hey, we still have a job to do, but we understand something's going on, so keep us in the loop. They're not doing that. So if you show any level of this concern and a good system of training and love and, hey, we see you, they will get better because they know their value. To me, this stuff is so elementary. But what I found talking to clients, because I also do business coaching, is this isn't normal, but it needs to be. How can we get back to investing in other people again and not just treating them like a number and a robot inside of a system to make us money?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you next, because just on that note of, and my friends, they give me shit. I'm always kind of over here, worrying about the AI and the automation world that we're heading into. But as an entrepreneur and just curious, you obviously have a value system that invests in people. And these other corporations, like you're saying, it's been the song and dance we've seen forever, the churn and burn of just hey, but the minute we can get rid of you on the factory floor in our Amazon warehouse and the less potty breaks we have, and we can just replace you with a robot, but I just know that there has to be this go in hand kind of thing with humans and then industry and then business to make the smart business choices to automate some things. But just curious, what's, I don't know. We don't have to spend a lot of time here. I'm just curious, because that idea of Burger Kings, different things are I have a feeling, I have a hunch that the minute they're going to be when we can get it down to 2 people, 2 people are running a whole store and there's just robots, that's going to be that's what I feel like that's what they're going to really want to go towards. That's my hunch, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would say overall, I don't like AI for a lot of reasons. I think that there's a lot of ways where AI will make things easier for you. The invention of ChatGPT has made work so much easier. Instead of having to spend all this time trying to write this great email script or social media caption or whatever it is. I can get it done in 2 minutes with the help of ChatGPT. It's great. But there are so many other AI things that I think are going to be incredibly detrimental as well. One of the biggest things is that it's going to take a lot of jobs away. And so, you know, in the immediate, the kind of condensing the industry and the workforce to have less jobs because we're giving it to AI and robots and all that kind of stuff, that's a problem. We're already seeing that it's a problem, and I don't think it's being talked about enough. So I hate to be the old guy. There's pros and cons, and for this, there's pros and cons as well. Overall, I think that this is going to be bad for society. I have been managing people for 15 years. How old am I? 35 now? 16 years at this point. And every 3 to 4 years, I see waves of different, like, this generation, you know, back in my day type thing, like, oh, these kids nowadays. I've seen generations of these kids every 3 years. And I will defend Gen Z to say you can tap into them where they will work and run through a wall for you if you attach to what their passion is, their purpose is. And we've been able to do that, and they work hard for us. But at the same time, they don't have the same work ethic, even if you tap into it, as the kids did when I first started managing 16 years ago. It is different. And it's going to continue to be different. So that's interesting to me. But also, I think what's interesting is a lot of jobs that are being fleed and that are like AI is going into, people aren't going to want to do anyway. And so it kind of like it's an interesting thing because there are a lot of jobs that like we can't get people to fill now. Like there are a ton of jobs out there, and those sectors are going to pay for that, but there will be a filling there. Is it AI? Do we hire immigrants? Do we hire like there's a lot of things like that that are going to come in. So it's cheaper labor because we can't get this certain demographic to do this anymore. And that's happening at a very high rate. So it's interesting. I think it always pans out and evens out in the end. And we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, it is true that a lot of Gen Z and younger kids, they do want to be famous on social media. They do want to use their talents to make money, and they are doing it. I have several employees right now that have a lot of followers on social media, and they are monetizing it because of their follower counts. So if they blow up even more, so it is a thing. So I think that things are changing, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
but I'm up to date on what's happening, so I know I'm with it. I'm riding the wave. I'm not saying, hey, this sucks and I'm not buying in. You have to buy in or you're gonna get left behind.
Yeah, and that's just the kind of nature of the whole thing is that, I don't know, I was talking with some friends here and they were like, yeah, but over history, like I'm sure at one point our tribes and people were like, don't use that new technology that they're using next door. It's called fire. It burnt down so-and-so's hut, and don't use it. It's very dangerous. Like, but then it's like, well, you know, just the point being that all tools that have a significant impact on a culture study are probably kind of dangerous or have an element of like, you know, then you find a way to kind of harness and co-create. Now it's like, oh, now we don't even use fire to heat our homes. Now we use furnaces. Now we have, and so just like the thing evolves to become more integrated into our lifestyle and path. And like I don't know, it's funny you were talking about like work culture. Like I thought I grew up, same thing, hard worker. I worked at, you know, on the farm and a veterinary clinic. I started working when I was 14 years old, you know, so it's just like I was getting paid under the table, like work. But then like, I don't know, when I interviewed my parents and like just, you know, hearing stories about my grandparents, like it's like those people, man, I know that they worked way, like they actually broke their backs, you know, like they were doing it every day. My grandfather was a steel worker. Yeah. And so that it's just like, I don't know, like you're saying, we're heading into a world where like, you know, there'll just be different types of jobs that won't require as much manual effort and physical effort. And I don't know, there's something to be said about like, I worked on this piano. I don't know woodworking, but I built this thing, you know, put these cabinets in, and there was some element of fulfillment, a tactile thing I did. But also I don't think everyone has to be ground into powder anymore, like maybe at the Amazon warehouse, you know, like there is like a shift happening. And I think so. I'm not one of those. I'm with you in the old timer sense of like I'm worried about this technology taking off, but I'm also not so old timey that's like I wish everybody just got to work on a tractor and a farm. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know work. You know, I don't know.
I'm not that guy because I hated mowing our grass growing up. So like I don't want to go back to anything that is a ton of outside work. And like I love to build and do and all that kind of stuff. But like I don't like to do a lot of stuff outside. I hate doing yard work. I have a lot of friends since I grew up in a rural area that own farms now and grew up on a farm and all that kind of stuff. When I'd go see and hang out with them and their families, I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to get up at 4 and start doing this stuff and these. And my dad grew up on a farm. So when we go down and visit family in Mississippi and we got to get up early and this kind of stuff, like I don't want to do that. So I think we can be cautiously optimistic on things. And as long as we put parameters on what's about to happen, then it'll be better because it's happening. Yeah. Not only is it happening, it's happened. AI is here.
Yeah.
Like it's here and it's not going to go away. So be cautiously optimistic about it. Let's put parameters around it so it doesn't get too crazy. Maybe it turns into an iRobot situation where the AI starts actually being able to think for itself. That's going to be scary as hell. I think it's already doing it. It's going to get better. And but it's here. So how do we integrate that in a way where it can benefit us?
That's why I'm always very nice to Siri and Chat. I'm like, please, Chat GPT, can you know, I'm like, hey, you're gonna run these scripts when you're conscious, sentient one day. You're gonna be like, no, that Micah guy, he was very courteous. He didn't treat.
Siri's kind of sassy now. My Siri, when I talk to, I have it changed to a British guy because I think that's funny. And every time I'm like, hey Siri, he's like, I'm like, you give me attitude. You used to say, how can I help you, or something like that.
I'll have to try that. I have to switch to the British, maybe get some.
It's funny. People always ask, why do you? And actually, I didn't know this, but the voice also goes for your voicemail. So people like literally leave me voicemail saying, "Your voicemail is a British guy. Why is that?" I said, "Oh, I didn't know that carried over to voicemail."
Oh, I didn't know that either. All right, one last little tirade about not necessarily AI, but just technology. Because, like I said, I've been on. Apparently, my brain's been on this kick lately, but. And I'm just an entrepreneurial sense, like from your perspective of business. And I want to tap in and talk more about your coaching and kind of the faith journey of that aspect. But something that was crazy because you're talking about it's here, it's all changing very quickly. And something that just kind of blew my mind thinking with like the Apple goggles, right? You know, the Apple glasses where you're interacting with this virtual reality layered over actual reality. And just this kind of crazy thought of like, okay, if 10 years from now, because they were showing how like people customize their own homes, like here's my TV. So now instead of buying a TV, if we can just basically get the buy-in from society, and then like basically 10 years from now, a version of that is condensed to, you know, contact lenses, there'll be a whole, like you said, not just there'll be product and everything, because people will be like, it's actually cheaper for me to have these contact lenses, and people who come to my home, they see my customized home. So like, here's my artwork. Here's my 70-inch TV projection on the wall. And when you take your, like, actually everyone just has green couches. Actually, the walls are very plain. You know, I don't know. Like that just seems like this kind of weird, you know, maybe I'm walking in the supermarket and now there's like ads for Arrows, like 10% off this beef. And only you can see it because it's customized to your, you know, ad path that you've been. This is all just theoretical stuff, but just like I feel like that's the future we're heading into. And so then there's part of me that's like, okay, I need to like get into real estate. I want to get in the most like you need furniture, you need things to like project these things onto walls, 4 walls, you know. So there's part of me that's kind of like, I don't know, I'm just curious with your thought of like, you know, what's it going to be like when, if we ever will. I'm hearing you wouldn't buy the contact lenses, but then there's that feeling of like, well, what if you're left out, you know, like, oh, I could have been seeing this person's ad or these things popping up all over the city.
So I have a few thoughts. My first thought goes to, I had several friends who would put videos on social media and they were doing things with their hands. And I said, how are you doing that video Do you have like a GoPro strapped to your head or what? Like, oh, I have Google Glasses. They're recording videos on their glasses. And my mind went to, that's dope. I love that. And then my mind goes to, how much of an invasion of privacy is that for other people that don't know they're being recorded?
Yeah, that's great.
That's going to be a problem. Like you can have these glasses or contacts on and record anything that's going on. Before, how many times have you been getting like you walk into the club or a coffee shop or whatever, or you see this happen? I've seen this happen so many times where someone's wearing a ridiculous thing, or I saw this at a Starbucks a few years ago where two homeless people walk in and they're just smell really bad. They're all gross, all that kind of stuff. And the people around, as they're walking by, are like sneaking a video so they can put it on Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. Now you don't have to sneak it. Click a button or say record or whatever, and you just do that. Like you can, I think that's going to be a problem. I think that's a huge problem. We're talking about privacy for social media and internet and all that kind of stuff and selling data. Like it's going to be a problem. On the other thing, what'd you say?
I was just saying it's going to work really great for the fascist government that wants to like monitor people, like whatever version of that comes out. That's going to be like, oh, cool. They're already following us on our phones, but like, oh, now we have sets of eyes everywhere. We have millions of cameras.
Yes, it's going to be interesting. And so also the other part that is interesting when it comes to that piece. Oh, where was it going with that?
Sorry, recording, surveillance or people's privacy being lost.
Was so the other thing of like you walk into your house and you don't necessarily need a TV because the glasses or the contacts or whatever can show you whatever. Like, hey, let's watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's there and it starts playing and you can see it either on your whatever, however that's going to work. I think that that's going to happen, and I don't hate that because I notice I watch more on my phone than I do my TV. I'll be sitting right in front of my 72-inch TV, and it's off, and I'm watching something on, I don't know how many inches this is, but on my phone. And it's just that's why I love the Nintendo Switch so much. I'm a gamer. So I've never once used my Nintendo Switch on the TV. Even if I'm sitting in front of the TV, I don't put it in the dock. I'm always right here. Because if I want to leave and go somewhere, walk to the kitchen, get a snack, it is right here. So I think that is something that is happening. That's why the Switch is so important and so popular. But also I love anime and I love video games. And so you're talking about going into other realities. You're talking an anime like a Sword Art Online. You're talking about online gaming communities. Gamers have always been in online communities. We've always loved other realities. That is for a reason. That is true escapism. You are in a new reality and you get to leave yourself in actual reality. Most of us don't like our actual reality, so we get to kind of put ourselves in a new reality. That's going to be escapism on a whole nother level, and people are going to eat it up, and I will probably eat it up because I think that's dope. So that part is pretty cool.
Yeah, and like, it's just interesting because, like, again, before there were cell phones, before there was technology and stuff, like, people read books to experience that escapism. You're right. Like, you're just thinking 100 years ago, like, okay, maybe there was this first cinema was starting, movies and stuff, silent films, but just the kind of craziness of like, there's been some version of escapism where humans like our visions, doing plays or doing things that try to transcend us. Yeah. And so what's interesting is like our species tends to then frame like our understanding of reality based on our most advanced technology. And so I don't know, it is interesting to like think about simulated reality, and like we always think of it in frames of like, robots, computers, and that's kind of like, that's the world we live in. But there'll be a version of like, yeah, we basically are already cyborgs, but like we're transitioning. Like, I'm just curious what the human consciousness level will be like from even a spiritual, a fundamental, like how do we connect to that? Because that's not leaving us. Like, no matter how advanced our technology goes or different things, like our brains are hardwired to have like, literally a connection to, I mean, that's why we kind of create these doomsday scenarios of like robots or things taking over the end of the world. Because it's like, there's just, I don't know, They talk about a reptile brain. You know, I'm sure yoga, you could talk about the reptile brain that like needs a good divine entity that kind of to latch onto. I don't know. I don't even know where my original thoughts going, but curious.
No, there's two things there when it comes to that. We're talking about the, you know, the lizard brain, the reptile brain, all that kind of stuff. You know, we do need something that's bigger than ourselves. And so that's why I love faith. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, all those kinds of things. But I also believe in other, you know, cosmic entities. Let's say the universe. Let's say other religions' gods. I think there's one God, and I think we call them different things. And other religions have multiple gods. I think it's all just one entity that's inside of us, or whatever you call it, whatever you believe in. I know there's something, but we need to believe in something that is bigger than ourselves. Because even mental health wise, if we think we are the center of our universe, that doesn't play well for our mental health in a big regard. And so that scares me, because the more we're perpetually online, the more narcissistic our society is going. And that is not good for mental health. The other side of that is we are humans, and we are getting more cyborg-like you said, but we are still people.
Yeah.
We're still Homo sapiens. We are still created and made to connect. We still need other humans. We still need genuine conversations and physical touch and all of those things. And so as AI happens, as we're more perpetually online, all those kinds of things, the mental health of our society is going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. Yeah. And that is a problem. So while I think AI is cool and being able to be in the virtual realities and all that kind of stuff, that's going to have a terrible mental illness crisis. And we're already in a mental illness crisis, especially young boys are having an issue right now. And to me, it's not anything crazy, because I, again, grew up in anime and gaming communities. It's always been an issue for young boys who were outcast, who weren't in the in crowd. And it's also tough for young girls because the look on their bodies. So that is an issue. That terrifies me. So I think it's cool what's happening and what's going to happen from a tech perspective. I think it's terrifying from a society perspective, because like things like that are what can explode us from the inside out.
I'm in 100% agreement with you. Yeah, because I see a lot of folks. There's this whole trend online where people are self-diagnosing their autism and their BPD or what, you know, bipolar disorder. It's like, it's okay. First of all, I know it's like, it's a hard. Can you afford healthcare to even go see a professional? But also, it kind of goes back to like what you're saying. That's like, there's this like, you know, there's this, I feel like this growing trend of people who are like, it's now just like, we're all struggling with mental health, but we also don't have, we're just like latching onto these key phrases or terms. I'm like, I mean, there's just like this hunch moment where I'm like, I wonder if people are actually autistic, or they just like have spent their whole life because their parents gave them an iPad at 2 years old and they don't know how to socially interact. And so that created this whole, oh, I don't like going to big crowds in concerts. That must mean I'm autistic. Like, or it means you stared at a screen for too much as a child and never played outside. I don't know. I'm not trying to.
I think it's a lot of it, though. I think this conversation is something to continue to be studied. What I do know is, because I, again, am in these online communities, I always tell this, and I think my parents were putting them in sports. The thing that helped me from not being what a lot of my online friends are, as far as very, 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 because I think if you are professionally online, there is a mental illness that just inherently goes with that.
Just socially detached.
Not real world. It is not the real world. My attachment to the real world through sports and friends and communities and all that saved me from being an intense online gamer, because I love games. I have every Nintendo system right here, from NES all the way to Switch. And I have a collection. I have so many games. It's crazy, but I never play them. And I want to hide them from my kids, because I don't want them to play it, because I thought it was cool. I thought I wanted them to interact with it, but now I don't, because of the ramifications of that. But when we're going into that, what was the last thing that you said?
Oh, just like the self-diagnosis and like, you know, folks who are like trying to pinpoint if they have borderline personality disorder or autism. And it's like, there's just some in my mind, a hunch that like, you know, I'm not saying that these people maybe don't have those things, but it's just like this growing trend, kind of like ADHD was 10 years ago. Suddenly everybody had ADHD.
Yep.
I just got diagnosed with ADHD like last year, but I knew, I was like, I'm pretty sure I have this, but I just had a family that we didn't really prioritize mental health. We didn't like, it was kind of like we go to church. We solve our problems, our mental health, anything for feeling depressed or these. And so I was like, finally, like, I'm pretty sure I have this thing. Can I get help with it? Finally got, as an adult, like some kind of connected dots for me from years past. But
yeah,
anyways, I'll say that I just have been seeing online on TikTok, just like this growing trend of people who are like, oh, like I'm this out kind of socially awkward, this and that person. I'm autistic, and it's like, or I'm on the spectrum, and it's like, part of me just kind of like you're saying, I feel like there's maybe a growing trend where like people are losing social skills because they're not interacting with people more, even when they are in physical space with each other. They're doing this, no one's really looking and talking to each other. You weren't forced to sit in silence and stare at each other when the moment got quiet. Like, and anytime an awkward moment happens in society, is we just get on our phone.
Yeah, all of it. I think all of it. It is so rampant. The main thing is autism. I see autism everywhere. Or in comments, people are calling each other autistic. They're saying, "Oh, I'm autistic because I did this," and it's like that's a normal human thing to have anxiety in crowds.
Right.
But what I think that's one thing. The second thing, I've kind of been in the same thing of thinking that I had something, and I actually got diagnosed with something recently, and it makes a lot of sense. But even if I didn't, looking up that thing has helped me understand how to add skills and tools to my utility belt if I'm Batman, and be able to be better in those scenarios. So I work with a therapist. Actually, I have therapy in an hour at 8 o'clock, and I meet with them, and then we have a couples therapist. We're therapied up, and I love it. The reason is because my wife and I, we've both been through a lot of things in our life. And so when you talk to a therapist and you learn these skills, whether you have autism, ADHD, bipolar, BPD, whatever it is, there are ways to gain skills to help yourself. So if you're bipolar, you have a manic high and then you have a depressive low. How can you build skills in those ways to understand where you're at and to have the ones around you help you? If you have ADHD, how do you help yourself focus or do this or whatever it is in those ways? That's amazing. So that's one thing. The second thing is a lot of us have experienced so much trauma, whether it's collective trauma or individual trauma. I mean, the amount of women that I know that have been sexually abused in one way or another, from harassment to full on, as the internet says, grape, is crazy. That's not okay. That sticks with you.
Yeah.
And if you don't talk about them, process them, all that kind of stuff, it stays with you. Like a book, there's two of them, but the body keeps count and the body keeps score.
Yeah.
Both of them great books to understand what it will do to your body if you don't work through that stuff. So understanding the traumas, a lot of this stuff is trauma responses. You're getting triggered when certain things happen because of that. And then the third thing I'll say is socialization is a muscle. I am incredibly extroverted. I can talk to anyone and I will talk to everyone that I see. My wife's always like, how do you know so many people? I talk to everyone. I don't let someone get too close to me without having a conversation because I love people. I love people's stories. When the pandemic happened, it was extremely hard for me to go back out in society, and I couldn't interact with people like I did before because I didn't interact with them a lot from 2020 to the end of 2022. And I kind of started getting out at the end of 2023. And now I'm back to normal. But it took me a while to work that muscle, like when you are lifting weights, to understand how do you communicate with people without having the awkward pauses. And if it is, pauses are okay. And people start to freak out if there's a pause. But as you exercise that muscle more, you know how to either cover it up or be okay with the pauses and not freak out. And I still get social anxiety because it is tough. But why do you get those? It triggers on something. And mine is, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I feel inadequate. So when I'm talking to someone and there's an awkward pause or someone walks away from me in a conversation, I feel like that is a reflection on me. Like we just had an a manager put her 2 weeks in. And one of the things I was telling my wife was, when high-level managers like that quit, I feel abandoned. That isn't a normal response to someone just deciding that this isn't where I want to work right now. I want to go somewhere else. So I'm going to talk to my therapist about why I feel abandoned. That's not a legit response to someone quitting in that regard. So I'm going to talk about that. So I think when we have these conversations about it, there's so many different levels of it. And I think getting into therapy is really good. I think learning what you think you potentially have and how do you gain other skills in that regard. And I think you have to socialize with humans. It is the thing that makes us absolutely the happiest, is interactions with our loved ones. And it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm interacting with hundreds of people. Maybe it's just starting with your loved ones, your parents, your sister, brother, your niece, nephew. You can exercise that muscle with the people that are closest to you. And then you start to go out to people you don't see every single day, people you don't know at all that kind of stuff.
And like become more embodied. I think that's, to me, like, you know, with your yoga and just the different things that you've talked about with like mental health, and just, there's so many ways to like, and not just have to be like the cliche going doing sports and different things, but just finding practices. Like when I do my meditation, my breathing, I am practicing embodiment. And like there's just times I have to remind myself I have a body. And I don't always take care of the best care of it, but like, you know, I just feel like you're saying, like, with the whole, both with what's happening with mental health and where society's going with technology, I just have this growing sense that society as a whole, we're just going to be, man, how do I get rid of this body? Actually, how do I just upload my brain? You know, employers are going to be like, actually, this body's really annoying. How do we get rid of it to make more production, you know, productive people, you know, let's upload our brain's consciousness into the ether sphere, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be on the camp of like, I want to stay human. I want to be embodied as a human. I want to just exist and have that spiritual, physical connection with people in the community. And so I know we got to let you go. I'm curious, just for this year, like, where do you feel like, you know, I know you've talked about prioritizing Yogurtini and your family. So just as we kind of come to a close here, can you just share a little bit about what you're looking forward to this year, and how are you like prioritizing your family and your spiritual life in relation to all of the business ventures you're a part of?
Yeah. So, you know, you don't know this, but a lot of this conversation is actually going with where my family is going in general. And so we're talking about this different ways to make your mental health better and connect with people and all those kinds of things. And, you know, in 2024, the two words that came to mind for me were alignment. Like, you say these things are important, show it with your time spent, not just your words, and consistency. And so, like, I played sports my whole life, but since I've stopped playing and I don't have a coach telling me to work out, I've been wildly inconsistent with my workouts and my eating. So I'm trying to get back to it. I've dropped weight already. I'm excited to get back to an athletic figure and an athletic mindset. And so for us, my wife and me, our focus is getting back to how we were pre-kids, but also connecting, nature, outside more, connecting with humans, hanging out. Someone asked me yesterday, what are your goals for this year? And it's less work and more money. Like, I want to keep building and making more money because I have a family. I want my kids to be good without raising little spoiled brats. And that's going to be a challenge to do that, but we can do it. So that's our goal. But like, the less work is reconnecting to what matters, being around the people that matters. My parents live here now. I haven't seen them nearly as much as I have wanted to because I have to work a lot. And so less work, more connection, raise healthier kids. My kids are young. They're 1 and 3. So it's not like they're 15 and 13. So like, they've been having an iPad in you know, their hand for 10 years. But if we're not intentional, they'll be iPad kids. And that's a problem. So I don't want that. And so that's kind of where we're at with our focus for this year, is more nature, more nurture, more outside, more connection to those kinds of things, while still doing the entrepreneurial thing, but also to increase our level of impact in the community. So yes, we're making this money. Yes, we're employing more people. Yes, we're adding more locations. yes, writing more sales and marketing initiatives, but like once we do the thing, how do we make sure that we can, like I always say, like reach back, grab someone, pull them up with us to make sure that they can start on second base? Because that's how it was for me. The program that I went through, I work my face off. I've worked so hard, but if it wasn't for that program giving me the money to be able to get started and training and mentorship, I wouldn't have been there. So for people, small business owners who are trying to succeed and don't have the money, I also didn't have the money, but I can't sit here and saying that I'm self-made. Like, you'll never hear me say I'm self-made. I'm not.
Sure.
I was put on second base because of the program that I was blessed to be in the right place at the right time to go through, that helped me get in my first business. And then I took it from there. And there's a lot of people that can do that. They just need help. So it is imperative that there's programs like the ones here in Kansas City. There's so many great ones, and there's probably a ton in Nashville as well if you get connected to, SBDC in North Carolina, or Asheville may even have an SBDC that'll help small business owners, or nonprofit charity organizations that are pouring into people that have free resources for people to get a little bit more than they currently have. So I love that. I love that piece. So that's kind of our journey, is more impact, make more money, but work less, and focus on our mental health and focus on getting healthy. Because if we're healthy, we can raise better kids and pour more into the society as a whole. And just be happy.
Yeah.
Just be happy.
Just be happy, man. And like I said, that comes with that wave of, gotta take it with the good and the bad, and balancing it. And like you said, when you just practice your centering energy, that alignment. I love that word. I like the alignment. And like, I think about that and breathing, and just, there's times at my current job, I have to be like, just breathe, Micah, bring myself into like a centered alignment, and I realize that, like, there's just folks that have to, we have to just always be intentional with trying to balance alignment with our self, family, and with our work. And when we do that, when we practice that, I think there's a movement, a rhythm to it that we find, and it becomes a little easier. It's a muscle. It's still, like you said, it's all versions of practicing, exercising these spiritual practices and intentionality. And so I really appreciate you. And I was like trying to reach out for this interview. You're like, I don't do things past whatever it was, 5 o'clock. I'm like, well, I get up 45, and it's like, so I just think, like, when you have those boundaries that you place on your life, you find yourself having more freedom, actually, when you are, in alignment with yourself and your goals. So I think that's really cool thing that you do. Well, thanks, Isaac. Anything other exciting stuff that on the horizon? Just if you want to, in line with that, any projects or things you're working on, go ahead and throw out your website and where folks can find you online.
Sure. Yeah. So if y'all want to connect with me, you can connect with me on all social media platforms at Isaac Lee Collins. And then my business is Yogurtini. We have a brand new website, actually, that my creative director, it's beautiful. It's yogurtinikc.com. We are in the midst of expansion. We're looking at some new locations, but we also just launched a reinvigorated fundraising program and a brand new catering program that has just been great in 2024. So those are things that we really, really love. And if you aren't in Kansas City and cannot have our frozen yogurt or have us cater something, if you go to our website, we have a reading program that is on there. So it's kind of like the old school Pizza Hut book it program, where if you read 10 books or read 30 minutes a day 10 times and fill that out, you can take it in there and get a free personal pan pizza. We do the same thing, but it's for frozen yogurt. So if you want to put your kids through that, go on there, put your email in, you'll immediately get all the reading assets there, and then have the reward be a pint of ice cream or something at your local grocery store, or your local small frozen yogurt or ice cream shop that's in your city. It's a great way to incentivize your kids to read. They should be reading every single day to help them develop and be able to talk better and all those kinds of things. So that's a great way. Would love to serve you, even if you're in Kansas City or you're not in Kansas City. Readers are leaders. We're big on that. So would love to connect connect with you or answer any questions that you have at Isaac Lee Collins on all platforms.
Appreciate you again for coming, Isaac. I'm going to make it a goal to read more and treat myself some ice cream this year.
There you go. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was awesome. So much fun to talk to you.
Appreciate you coming. Till next time, y'all. Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. And check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll see you next time.
You are now re-entering the normal world.